You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey, General Hospital fans. So Ric Lansing finally gets the chance to have a proper reunion with Elizabeth Weber, and actor Rick Hearst has dropped some info, some very interesting info about what happens between them. This is Belinda from Soap Dirt, and we are going to dive into what could happen while these exes are hanging out and whether there's a chance for Rick and Liz to respark what they had in the past. You may remember Ric Lansing already tried to have a conversation with Liz when he was up at General Hospital when he first got back to town. The problem was that Carly Spencer was there and she wasted no time in being awful to Rick. And of course, I totally understand why Carly hates him. It's justified, but I have a couple of small issues with how she came at him. First is the fact that Rick had just come from the funeral of his granddaughter, and Carly knew that. She knew it. So that was just not the time to be dragging Rick over ancient history. And let's not forget, Carly has done a ton of stuff in her past that is nothing to be proud of, stuff that is probably pretty close to as reprehensible as a lot of the things Rick has done. But she actually got a little serving of karma from Dante the other day when he dredged up her paying BLQ to break up him and Lulu. And I seem to recall that Carly wasn't very happy to have her past bad deeds brought up, but she doesn't have a problem dragging anybody else's past. So the good news is the next time that Rick goes looking for Elizabeth, the woman that hates him, Carly is nowhere in sight. And I know a lot of GH fans are torn on whether they're happy that Rick is back or are angry that they brought him back because they just don't want him around. If you listen here regularly to me, you know, your girl Belinda is a big fan of villains. I loved Franco. I still love Ava. I kind of enjoy Cyrus, you know. Shiloh I hated because he was a rapist pervert. But, you know, the other ones I kind of liked. So I do appreciate Ric Lansing's dark underbelly and his bad deeds. But it seems like maybe he's at least a little better now than he used to be. We'll find out. So this week, Rick stops by the hospital to see Liz to try and get a proper catch up on what's going on since the last time they saw each other, because it's been quite a while. If you don't remember what he was doing the last time that Rick was in town, it was so shady. Very typical of him. That was back when Liz was dating Drew, but before he found out who he was, that was when he was still Jake Doe. And, you know, then he thought he was Jason and then only later came out to be Drew, which is messy weirdness. So Rick had hired Hayden Barnes to come to town to pretend to be Jake Doe's wife to get the amnesiac hunk away from Liz. And after bringing in Hayden, that did force some distance between Liz and Jake Doe, which left room for Rick to kind of slide back close to her. But then he was outed in a very public way at the nurses' ball, humiliated, and then he winded up leaving town. And let's be real, Liz wasn't herself at her best back then because she knew that Jake was really Jason. Of course, it didn't turn out that way. But at the time, she thought he was Jason and was keeping him in the dark to keep him in her life and away from Sam and away from Carly. And of course, Jake broke up with her when he found out he was Jason, which turned out he wasn't. He was Jason's twin Drew. Again, messiness all done because Steve Burton came back and they had to rewrite stuff. So, however, the lie that Liz was living, you know, to her, that was one thing. And the scheme that Rick set up to keep her away from Jake Doe was another thing. And in her mind, what Rick did was worse than what she did. That was like 7-8 years ago, like in 2016-ish, I think. So it's been a minute since Rick was in town, but he never stopped loving Liz. So of course, circling around to catch up with her and find out what's going on and whether there might be some room for him to get close to her is something Rick was probably hoping for from the moment he got to Port Charles. And of course, it was the funeral of Molly and TJ's baby that did bring Rick back to town. He He's been living on the West Coast doing his shark lawyer thing, but he came back to pay respects to the little girl that was his granddaughter that Christina was carrying for Molly. And of course, we just found out Christina never planned to let Molly have the baby. Messy stuff. But Ric is going to be staying in town for a little while. And he even took on Scotty Baldwin's crazy client, Heather Weber. And that was why he was at hospital the other day when he ran into Liz and Carly chewed him a new one. So this time, Ric's lucky. Carly's not around. He gets Elizabeth all to himself. And actor Ric Hearst said that for his character, Ric Lansing, Elizabeth Weber will always be the one that got away, the one he never wanted to hurt, the one he always wanted to be with, but he managed to hurt and screw things up every time because he's just so deeply flawed, which is kind of what I love about him. So this week, Ric slides up next to Liz at the hospital to have a little chat, and she's totally open to talk to him, which is thrilling for Ric. They take a little walk together. He's wanting to take her for coffee, or even better, get Elizabeth to go out to dinner with him so he can do a little bit of whining and dining. Ric may have been gone for years, but he never forgot about Liz. But he is going to find out soon that she's not at a great place in her life when it comes to relationships and her heart. Ric's going to find out that Liz was devastated when her husband, Franco Baldwin, was brutally murdered. And then, she finally got involved with someone else. That was Hamilton Finn, and he fell off the wagon and he was horrible to her. So they had an ugly breakup, and now he's just gone out of town to rehab. And I don't know if or when we're going to see him again. No time soon, because Michael Easton has been let go. So Liz, she's not in a great place emotionally. She, I think, still is grieving Franco to some extent. And then the way that Finn treated her is just more heartache. So Liz is not looking to get hurt again. And certainly Ric has hurt her very badly in the past, but he also regrets every time he did a bad thing to her, but it's just his nature, right? So Ric Hearst said that his character is definitely going to try and rekindle something and make a little magic with him and Liz, because he's never forgotten how strongly he felt about her. So Ric is definitely going to try and get past the walls that she's built. And it looks like Elizabeth's ex is going to stay in town for a minute. And the actor said he wasn't expecting to get this chance for Ric to try again with Liz when they first contacted him and brought him back in. And then he said he was very surprised. So Ric Hearst told Soap Digest that he thinks fans will enjoy what is ahead for Liz and Ric. So look for the lawyer to put his smooth moves on for Liz starting early this week, but it should continue for a while. So what do you guys think? Are you excited to see Ric get another shot with Elizabeth, or do you just want him to leave town and leave her alone? Let me know what you think. Drop your comments. Please subscribe if you haven't, and definitely come back soon. It's Belinda from Soap Dirt talking General Hospital with you 7 days a week.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.